Comme ça, tu peux te mettre l'autre photo. Tu peux t'asseoir ici. Non, non, toi. Comme ça, je te vois. Oui, oui.
Let's start.
Okay. Everybody say it.
Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Gita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Gita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Gita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Abhitatma Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Abhitatma Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Atman Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Atma Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Atma Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Kita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Kita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Kita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Kita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Kita Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan, Prabhu Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan Prabhu Putra Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan Prabhu Bhagavan. Om Bhagavan.
Okay, as you can see, we're our conditions here are uncertain at this point. The power keeps coming and going. We're not really sure why. It could be general, could be local. We've got people working on it. We're going to go ahead with our program because we do have good connection with Yann, and we have also Yann on the telephone, so that'll be our backup. So, but we're going to use the laptop for now. See, the power's gone again, so we won't have this screen just yet. And but we will be able to. We should be able to maintain at least audio contact by phone. So I would like to introduce Father Yann Vagneux, who is. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I hope you can see us, Yann. Yann is a priest, a Catholic priest living in Varanasi. He's an author. He's a pilgrim. He travels a lot. He writes, he researches, he's a photographer. He's written nice books. He wrote his dissertation, his doctoral dissertation on Jules Mochanan, and that is being published in French. I think it's already been published in French, and it's now being translated into English and will come soon. And that, for those who are not really, well, fluent in French, not reading French, that would be nice to have a more, well, a more up-to-date and complete book on Jules Mochanan. Yeah, and another book Yann published recently was called A Priest in Benares. Okay, so that's Yann's own work that he's doing there in Benares. Yeah, so today, I don't know the name of Yann's talk today, but we'll find out. Now, will we be able to hear Yann?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Yann, we think we're going to be able to hear you.
Yes,
and I've
we
got
will.
the phone in hand. Let's keep this telephone connection in case we have to go to that. In the meanwhile, Dorothea is over here. Our prior is over here hard at work trying to restore the large connection. So without further ado, if you would please welcome Yann, even if you can't see him just yet. He's here on the laptop, but please welcome him. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, all of you who are gathered in Shantivanam for those beautiful days in the company of Abhishektananda, and all those who are connected with us via internet, and those I think will after have access to the different videos. I mean, this great communion that we are living beyond the distance, beyond the ocean, speaks a lot about the fecundity of Abhishektananda. Indeed, I can say that along the years, I have seen this spiritual family of Abhishektananda growing, and suddenly you are in New York and you speak about Abhishektananda, and this family growing, and a sense of great closeness between us. Here in India, we would say we are Guru Bhai and we are Guru Bahin. We belong to the same family of these Gurukulas, the Guru that Abhishektananda is for us. And yesterday, as we were celebrating the 50th anniversary, in such a way it's a little strange to celebrate an anniversary in the case of Abhishektananda, because what he has shown us is to enter into eternity. And the passing of the years, I mean, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 50 years, it's just a detail, you know, because he's calling us from the further shore to enter into this eternal present in which he is today. But yesterday, as I was meditating, reflecting on those 50 years, I was filled with a great sense of gratitude towards him, not only for what I have personally received from him, but for what so many around the world have received from Abhishektananda, and I can dare to say that what we have received is a burning sense of the absolute, a sense of the deep, of the depth, you know. And for me, when I discovered him at the age of 18, that is what has overwhelmed me, you know, what has turned my life upside down. He was giving me what I was thirsting for, this sense, this taste of the absolute. Indeed, it is what Abhishektananda was looking himself at the age of 18 years when he left the diocesan seminary where he was preparing himself to become priest, and he was going to join the Benedictine monastery of Kergonan in Brittany, in France. He wrote a letter to the novice master as a candidate is supposed to do. And in this letter of 1928, he was 18 years old, I have found this quotation: "What has drawn me from the beginning of my journey, and what still leads me on, is the hope of finding there, in the Kergonan Abbey, the hope of finding there the presence of God more immediately than anywhere else. I have a very ambitious spirit, and this is permissible, is not when it is a matter of seeking God, and I hope I shall not be disappointed." I think not only, despite all the suffering he has gone through with a great courage in his life, not only Abhishektananda has not been disappointed in his quest of the absolute, but is not disappointing us who are also thirsting from the same experience. And that is what has made him a real guru. In one of his beautiful texts, a priest that India awaits, that the world awaits, he was saying, you know, the guru is not somebody who is just repeating what he has intellectually learned in books or heard from others. But the guru is the one who is able to transmit, and even by his silence presence, what he has realized, what he has experienced. You know, he speaks from experience. And that is what makes Abhishektananda so powerful. And I would say he's not old-fashioned, you know, I mean, because he speaks from this depth, from this intensity, from this experience of the absolute, he will continue to nourish so many souls, you know, all around the world. He has given us a sense of the beyond. But as I am saying that, I would like to say, you know, when we speak of Abhishektananda, of the intensity of spiritual quest, we should be careful not to make too much mythology, you know, because maybe also because sometimes he had a very unique style, you know, when he was writing. We would imagine, oh, Abhishektananda, you know, in the Himalayas, and acosmic, far from the world, you know, detached, you know, already in eternity. Of course, when I discovered him at the age of 18, that was my idealized image I had of Abhishektananda. But along the years, I have been more and more touched by also his call to live this quest of the absolute in what is utterly simple, you know, the simplicity, you know, this great call of simplicity. I will not speak very long, but I would like to let Abhishektananda speak. This is why I have a certain number of quotation. And at the end of his life, you know, in 73, he was writing on 22nd March, you know, 22nd March 73, very few months before his great departure, his Mahasamadhi. He was writing to his own sister, Sister Marie-Thérèse. As you know, she was a Benedictine nun in Kergonan. They were, I think, 20 years age difference between each other. He was the elder brother. And also she was a kind of disciple for Abhishektananda. And he was speaking very freely with his younger sister. And he was saying that he was in Rishikesh, and he has just visited some avadutas, some sadhus living in a very, very poor life. in Saptarishi ashram near Haridwar. And he was writing that. It is here that I truly find the meaning of monastic life. It is so simple, this mystery of the within. It is desecrated when you explain it, like a flower when you touch it. A flower is simply to be experienced. How complicated I find an organized monastic life. Here we have the freedom of the spirit. And 10 days after, he was writing to his disciple Mark, was not yet Swami Ajatananda, that was a little before the Sannyasa Diksha. And he was almost saying the same thing to Mark. You know, Mark, they didn't know whether Mark will be able to remain in India or not, but the idea at that time, you know, we are in the beginning of April 73, the idea that Mark would come back to France and become an hermit. And then he was writing that to Mark. Here it is truly marvelous, still in Rishikesh. I think he was in Gyonsu, in Uttarkashi, in his hermitage. Here it is truly marvelous. There is none of the superficial spiritualities that you have in Rishikesh. By the way, I mean, Rishikesh in 73 was a village. If Abhishektananda would have seen Rishikesh today, I don't know what he would have written, you know. There is none of the superficial spiritualities that you have at Rishikesh. A village quite close, Uttarkashi, a small town a mile away, solitude on a human scale. That is what you will have to find somewhere in this vast universe. The edge of a village, or else an adjoining wood, a stream. You know, and I have some other quotation in store, but this great simplification of Abhishektananda, you know, the intensity of the quest of the absolute, living in great humanity, in great simplicity. And indeed, you know, when the more I was touched by this aspect of Abhishektananda, there was a question within me, who was he really? Who was Abhishektananda? Beyond all the myths, you know, beyond all what we are projecting on him. I have been greatly helped, and that was a grace for me, to have the privilege to know some of the friends of Abhishektananda, and we are so much privileged to have among us Bettina G, who has known Abhishektananda, who has been so much touched by Abhishektananda. And when I hear Bettina G, as when I was hearing those who have now gone to the further show, the friends of Abhishektananda, they were helping me to discover the man, you know, and all of them were speaking of you know, of this gentleness, this simplicity, this, he was not making a show of himself, as we can say sometimes some gurus are making a big show of himself, you know. And the more I was reading Abhishektananda, especially the letters to his disciples, the more I had a feeling to discover him better. Indeed, I would say today, if you want to have a better image of Abhishektananda humanly and spiritually, go to see his relationship with his disciples. He had the grace at the end of his life to receive the gift of disciples, whether we were speaking, Bettina G was speaking of Ramesh Srivastava, a young Hindu man. There were also Sister Thérèse, a Carmelite nun from Lisieux in France, of course, Marc Chaduc, Swami Ajatananda, and Bettina G himself, as others, men and women who have been coming to India, who have been touched by Abhishektananda. And that was a new experience for Abhishektananda at the end of his life. You know, he wanted, when he was in Shantivanam with Monshana, they were looking for vocations, you know. I think Abhishektananda would be extremely happy to see our Indian brothers today in Shantivanam, because you are incarnating his desire, his dream. But he couldn't receive any vocation at that time for Shantivanam. But at the end of his life, he received the gift of the disciples. I just quote here a letter of Abhishektananda to one of his companions of Kergonan in the monastery in France, Joseph Le Marier, in January 72. Next week, I will be in Haridwar with Sister Therese from Lisieux. The 10 days following with Ramesh, the young Hindu who reads the gospel and make me discover in an inexplicable experience what a guru means for a disciple. That goes so very far beyond spiritual direction and even natural or even spiritual fatherhood. This experience that he had to become this guru, this spiritual father, and to be able to give totally what he has received along the year in his spiritual journey. So I would like to take the example of two of his disciples. I have, you will find more details about their life in this book. I have the last I have published in English. It is, I think Dorothy has some copies here in Shantivanam, the way it's also available on Amazon. It's called Indian Portraits. And in the Indian Portraits, I have tried to make the portraits of different disciples and people influenced by Abhishektananda. The first I would like to speak is Sister Therese. Sister Therese was the novice mistress from the Carmel of Lisieux in France, from where we have the Sainte Thérèse of Lisieux at the end of the 19th century. But here we have another Thérèse, Thérèse Lemoine, and Abhishektananda entered in contact with Thérèse. You know, I mean, what is marvelous, people like Abhishektananda, Montchanin, Charles de Foucault, and so many others, they were writing so many letters. I mean, today we are no more writing letters. We just write some SMS or very short email. But those people were dedicating so much time, you know, and it's wonderful because when you write a letter, you can share a lot. And then with Sister Therese in 1959, they started a correspondence and exchanging letters. And even Therese was 15 years, she was 15 years younger than Abhishektananda. Immediately they recognized how they were close together. I would say a spiritual brotherhood between both of them. They were consecrated. Abhishektananda was a Benedictine monk, came in India, 59, already 11 years he was living in India. Therese was a contemplative nun. And they discovered this very great closeness. And this is why Abhishektananda was very free to give a lot to Therese in those letters. And Therese was also giving a lot, opening her heart to Abhishektananda. And Therese, in one of the letters, she was writing something which will find an echo of what the young Abhishektananda, Henri Le Sceau, wrote to his novice master when he was 18. You remember, I am very ambitious, he was saying Abhishektananda. And then Therese wrote that to Abhishektananda. Since my childhood, I had a longing for God alone. And to tell the truth, everywhere I went, even in my own family where I had all the necessary to be happy, at the same time, I felt myself to be a stranger with an all-consuming need for a beyond that was the absolute. You know, it's so beautiful because this Therese, who for the first time in Abhishektananda has found somebody who could understand her in her deepest longing, her deepest desire for a being that is an absolute. And that eventually brought Therese in 1965 to India into an incredible adventure between both of them, and especially for Therese, who at the end of her life, after the Mahasamadhi of Abhishektananda, she will settle in Rishikesh as an hermit. She came in India, and we have just published now the correspondence. We have the letter of Therese, the letter of Abhishektananda. So we have a beautiful dialogue. We have published that in French. A dialogue of how Abhishektananda very so delicate, you know, so nicely, he was trying to accompany and to help Therese. And this story, I would say for Therese, is a story of liberation. Therese had many impediments, many problems in her life. As every foreigner who wants to settle in India, she had problem of visa. And then she was a nun, and as it was the case also for Abhishektananda, when you leave your monastery in France to come to India, you need a permission, granted from the Vatican. We call that an indult, and which has to be renewed, and all the years that Therese spent in India between 1965 to 1976, she was uncertain, to have a visa renewed, to have indulge the permission to live outside of the cloister renewed. But also Therese, she was filled with fears, and Abhishektananda was saying very justly, the cloisters, the monastery doesn't help you to become very free, and he was rejoicing to see, because Therese started to travel in India, and to live the very heroic life of Abhishektananda, and Abhishektananda was happy to see that how Therese was experimenting and gaining this inner freedom. And I would say a great, when you see how Abhishektananda was accompanying, following the people to whom he was close, he was helping them to be very free. And this inner freedom, you acquire it because you go very deep. The more you go deep, the more you are free. And we see this, but it's not easy to be liberated, to experiment the fullness of this freedom. And I will quote here a letter of Abhishektananda to Therese in 1969. Already she's traveling in India. It's a new world, Imagine a nun who has spent 15 years, more than 15 years in a cloister in France to be in this vast India. So he wrote that to Therese. You found me very tough in my last letter. There is a real difference between what you are deep down, that which you experience so well at the same depth, and the fears of your surface characters, all those fears. I want to say you are truly free at the depth of yourself and so little on the surface that ultimately I would wish for an explosion within yourself, which would scatter to the four winds all this surface dust that prevent you from being who you are really. And all those fears were preventing Therese from being who she really was. And the last letter that Abhishektananda, as he was in Indore, after his heart attack, which was also this great experience of awakening in Rishikesh on 14 July 1973. The last month when he was in the hospital of Mother Theophan in Indore, in the very last letter to Therese, he spoke again of this need, to go deep and to acquire this inner freedom. I quote again Abhishektananda to Therese. You are courageous and strong in taking the big decisions, but many of the details of your daily life dismantle you. If only you were able, with one great beating of the wings, to let go of everything that is troubling you, to start over as you look up, free of all your worry, then you will be able to glide. But you will tell me that is not your grace. Then with such a burden, how will you fly? And then in the last sentence of this last letter, he said that awakening is simple. And the most commonplace things one might imagine. And it is only the awakening that counts. I wish you this awakening that is so simple, so released, and so indescribable. I wish you this awakening that is so simple, so released, and so indescribable. And you see, Abhishektananda, till the last letter, calling Therese to be liberated from the fears, to go very deep, to a real identity, but also calling her to its simplicity, what he was experimenting, you know, saying, now I am totally powerless, bedridden, but this awakening is so simple. Of course, Abhisheknanda is not known was in this world what Therese became, you know, how she managed to go and to settle as an hermit in Rishikesh before mysteriously disappearing in September 1976. Before speaking of Mark, as we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Mahasamadhi of Swamiji, I would like to quote a letter of Thérèse to one of her religious sisters in France. You know, Thérèse, like Mark, like Bettina G, knew about the death of Abhisheknanda, not on the day, you know, today, I mean, in 1 second we would have known. They knew on the day of Christmas. And yesterday, Bettina G was asking me, where shall we celebrate? And we will celebrate a Mass in memory of Abhisheknanda. But I think it's good to celebrate the day of Christmas, which was a mystery so important for Abhisheknanda. So all of them came to know, all the disciples and friends of Abhisheknanda came to know about the Mahaprasthana, the great departure of Abhisheknanda on Christmas. And Thérèse wrote that, and it's a very moving letter. Curiously enough, Mark and I received the news at the same time, on Christmas Day. That really meant to say to us, rejoice with me about the awakening into total light. There has certainly been the shock of the surprise, but I do not believe I experienced a moment of anguish or feeling down, while thinking of the isolation that this could mean for me now. The Lord has wonderfully overtaken me in a grace received just a month before his death during my retreat. The Lord has really revealed himself to me as a Sadguru, you know, the Supreme Guru, dwelling forever in the depth of my heart, immovable in his glory, and holding all my life in his powerful hands. Also, when I knew that the Guru Abhisheknanda I had seen was from that time on living in the fullness of light and consciousness, his life of a son in the sun, I understood that Abhishektananda's mission at my side was over, like that of John the Baptist, who turned his disciples away from himself in order to deliver them to the hands of the one true master. Of course, you know it well, this does not suppress the life of faith, and I do not always know what tomorrow will bring. But I am not able to worry, because I know that someone within me has taken charge of everything. You know what is extremely beautiful, that for this Thérèse was full of fears, of worried. The departure of Abhisheknanda was accompanied by a grace of liberation, a grace of peace, which has guided Thérèse till the end of her life, as we see in the letter. And also, as Bettina G was saying, you know, this is very beautiful in the relationship of Abhisheknanda with his disciple, how he was making them free and not putting his hand on them, you know, but rejoicing that they grow, you know, like, you know, there is this image of John the Baptist. No, John the Baptist had some disciples, but suddenly John the Baptist saw Jesus and he said to his disciple, now go with him, he's greater than me, you know. And we'll see that with Mark, you know, the same image. Abhisheknanda not trying, you know, to keep and to make his disciples, to keep them lesser than him, but rejoicing because they go further. With Mark, Ajatananda, it's another relationship. I wrote that text, the supreme conqueror of death, in the Indian portraits. With Mark, Abhisheknanda, there were 37 years difference, you know. And so Abishkanda had more than the age to be the father of Mark. And with Mark, Abishkanda, I mean, it is a meeting of two fires, you know. In such a way, he has met, Abishkanda met in Mark the one he was longing for, you know, the disciple who would take everything, who would ask everything, who would be able to receive everything, you know. Even there was a huge difference of age, but there was this intense communion and closeness as, you know, two fires meeting and becoming only one fire. But Abhishektananda, you know, had all his experience in the monastery, you know, in a very mature spiritual experience. He understood immediately that, you know, Mark was a kind of spiritual skyrocket, you know, going immediately to the sky, to heaven. But he was young, you know, Mark was 28 years old when he met, 27 when he met Abhishektananda, you know. He will be 33 when he will disappear. So young, and Abhishektananda understood that he had to ground Mark humanly so that he may be able to bear the intensity of his spiritual experience, you know, to ground Mark down on earth, you know, humanly, to make him able to, in a very harmonious way, to carry this spiritual experience. After their meeting, you know, they met in Delhi and they went to Rishikesh, where they had a beautiful mass along the Ganges. We have a photo of both of them. Then they went to Fulshati, 8 kilometers north of Rishikesh. There was a deep experience of light, of communion between both of them. And then Abhishektananda, so it was just the beginning of their meeting. Abhishektananda told Mark, now take a month of silence in a cave. And after this month of silence, Abhishektananda said to Mark, now go to visit India, go to Varanasi, go to Tiruvannamalai. I mean, do your yatra, as we say in India, you know, your discovery of India. And he was sending letters to Mark, who was traveling. And in this letter of December 71, he said that, in the first place, your pilgrimage must not be interrupted unless you are compelled to do so by outward circumstances. It is part of your sadhana, your spiritual practice. The espresso bar, so I don't know where was this espresso bar on the Ghats of Varanasi. The espresso bar on the corner of the Ghat is no less divine than the Arati of Haridwar or the ecstatic mass together. You know, this very simple espresso bar of Rishikesh is no less divine than those great moments we have lived together already in Haridwar. This is precisely what you have to discover and live now, the expression of the inmost and unique mystery in the most commonplace action or meeting. The expression of the inmost and unique mystery, the divine mystery, in the most commonplace action or meeting. As you know, I mean, the relationship went so fast, so deep, so intense. Also because, as I told, they didn't know, you know, whether because of the visa problem, Mark would have suddenly to return to France. So there was an emergency, you know, in their relationship. This is why, you know, as Abhishektananda saw Mark was able to receive, you know, he was able to give everything. And you surely have heard about this great night of the 10 May 1972 in the small ashram of Pulshati, 8 kilometers north of Rishikesh. This experience of light, you know, that during 3 hours, Mark was petrified by this light. And after this great experience, which has been a turning point in their relationship in May 72, Abhishektananda wrote that to Mark. The Upanishads are not a science to be taught. It's not here. But an experience which is communicated by spiritual generation. An engendering which paradoxically produces not born. Live this trinity, you know, this experience of Pulshati, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, what for Christian faith we call the Trinity. So live this Trinity, this divine mystery, humbly in the mystery of the simple human relationship. You see, after going so high, Abhishekhananda saying, come back to the simple relationship, because, all those human relationships give us to experiment something of this ultimate mystery of the Trinity, this divine communion. As you know, 1 year after, on the 30 June 73, Mark took sannyas. He was introduced in the monastic life, Christian monastic life by Abhishekhananda, and in the lineage of the sannyasi by Swami Chidananda of Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. So Swami Chidananda and Swami Abhishekhananda, who were very close friends, gave this monastic initiation, sannyasa initiation to Mark. And that was, because Mark took so seriously, what Abhishekhananda showed him. And Abhishekhananda was always a desire to go beyond, to live a life of a sannyasi, but he was also very much committed with the Church of India. He was traveling all around India to attend some meetings of the church, But Mark, who has become now Swami Ajatananda, was very radical, and then after the sannyasa diksha, Mark left, and they should have never met again, they were not supposed to meet. So Abhishekhananda came back, and he wrote many letters to say how he was moved by this sannyasa diksha. And in his spiritual diary, on the 3rd July 1973, Abhishekhananda wrote that, I have felt terribly anxious for the last 3 days about what is happening to my child, what he is eating, where he is sleeping, has anything happened to him? And the rain, I cannot eat without wondering if he's able to eat. No appetite for any food. And the torment is that he has left me, not just physically, but that he has passed into a sphere of the sacred to which I have no access. And yet I know that nothing bad can happen to him. The one who was after me has gone ahead, and I can no longer join him. And yet, wherever you flee, it is into me that you come, to that depth of myself, out of which I have mysteriously called you. The one who was after me has gone ahead. This immense spiritual joy to see his disciples becoming a master, and a few days after, when they will meet again and live this incredible week in Ranagal, Abhishekhananda will finish to liberate the disciple, to make him in the fullness of spiritual master, Ajatananda. But we see also how he was caring, what he's eating, where he's sleeping. It was raining, it was pouring down, the beginning of the monsoon in Rishikesh, After the intense spiritual week in Ranagal, Abhishekhananda will have his heart attack on 14 July 73 in the bazaar of Rishikesh. Then Mark will bring him back to Indore, and Mark will return to the solitude. Mark Ajatananda will return to the solitude of Fulchati. And during the last months, September, October, November, we have the last letters of Abhishekhananda to Mark Ajatananda. And the last letters are, again and always, a call to go always deeper and deeper, but to go deeper and deeper in the utter simplicity. And Abhishekhananda knew, the challenge for Mark was not in such a way spiritual life, but to live this spiritual life in a very balanced, harmonious way, with his own human maturity. So one letter, one of the last letters of Abhishekhananda to Mark Ajatananda. There is nothing more to be said between us, and yet you tell me that there are so many more things to say. For my part, I needed this punishing blow of the heart attack to make me realize that the awakening to the I, the eternal I, is beyond all that marvelous poetry with which again and again we naturally close it. The awakening is what lies in the depth of what is utterly ordinary. The awakening is what lies in the depth of what is utterly ordinary. What a purification, this mental helplessness in ease in which I now live. And you see those, I quoted the last letter of Abishkanda to Therese, you know, the simplicity of the awakening. Helpless in his bed, cannot move, cannot make any project, but totally grounded in this light, in this eternal light. And here again, we have the witness of Mark when he knew on the day of Christmas 73 of the Mahasamadhi of his guru. He wrote to Raymond Panikar and Bettina Baumer on this 25th December 73. He wrote that at Jatananda, Mark at Jatananda. Yes, fire he was and fire he is. Fire that we have been for each other, burning mutually in this thrice holy fire of the Trinity, which infinitely exceeds us and has destroyed everything. An inner apocalypse which at certain times burst out into a transfiguration of glory. I know it, and I am witness to it. And this incredible fire, light, transfiguration, you know, the last photos of Abishkanda taken by Christophe Baumer in October 73 in indoors, the eyes of light, you know, all of you, you know, that photos of the eye of light, of this man, you know, who could hardly walk, go out, you know, so diminished, you know, in his physical body, but so full of light, but living this awakening in the most simple way. And I would give the last word to Mother Theophan, this nun who along the year was taking care of the health of Abishkanda, and who took care of him till the last hours of the 7th December 73. Few days after the death of Abishkanda, she wrote, Mother Theophan, to Marie-Thérèse Le Sceau, the youngest sister of Abishkanda, who was a nun. Father was so perfectly human, so charming and gentle in his manner. Several of our doctors got very close to him during his long weeks here, and they remained very impressed. His mission was to be what he taught. He wanted his life to demonstrate what is essential, namely that which is taught by true Hindu spirituality and by St. John of the Cross and St. John the Apostles. Awakening to oneself, awakening to God. May we who are the spiritual daughters and spiritual sons of Abishkanda follow his footsteps, the same fire, the same light, and the same simplicity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We could hear you very well, and we had good video all the way through. So, yeah, thank you so much for a lovely talk. Would you be willing to take a question or two?
Yes, I am.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I am free.
Okay.
I am free, yes. You are free because
Again, I'm putting Anthony, Father Anthony Collier, on. I think let's see how to do it. I think we use all these. I don't know exactly. Oh no, sorry.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. Could you come here stand here to ask your question. Huh? Yeah, come here. I think you need to be right about here. Give us a second, Yann. We're getting sort of. So right, just stand right here and look at this green line here. Right here. Okay, and you can use that as well.
Hello, Father Anthony.
Hello, Father.
We are discussing on Abhishikananda is awakening, and the last sentence, awakening to self is awakening to God. There is an equation he has found in the line of Advaitic encounter. So when you were asking me in this conference, has Abhishikananda developed any method, meditation method, to dive deep into the depth of our being? How to do that? So you are telling us beautifully how what happens when we go deep into our own being. We experience immense, ineffable freedom. That's what you said. And we get a new identity. Construction also happens when we enter into the depth of our being. So what is the method he has followed? Technically, I know certain methods he has followed, but do you find any special method in his personal life, autobiographical life? How did he accomplish this kind of depth experience? Anything that which is different from Ignatian methodology, there we are applying our mind. Okay, Patanjali also speaks about which is called Chittavritti Nirodha. But anything, something distinctive method that Abhishikananda has found turns in the depth of our being.
Thank you. I hope I have understood not everything, but the main point. Connection is not so good. How he has been able to reach, this awakening. I would say, of course, Abhishikananda had different periods in his life. We should never forget he has spent 19 years in a monastery, which has given him, would say, a structure which was very narrow and he, it has given a structure which was good for him when he was young, which has revealed itself to be a very narrow structure when he went to Tiruvannamalai, he met Arunachala. And, I think the great suffering of Abhishikananda, his great agony when you read the diary, came because of that, because he was coming maybe from a very narrow-minded world and suddenly was plunged in another world, very vast, So I would say yes. This spiritual journey of Abhishikananda also has been so much influenced by his trials, by his anguish, I don't know if some of you know the classical Orthodox icon of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, So you have the Virgin Mary lying, the Orthodox, they say the Dormition of the Virgin Mary. She has not died, but she slept in death, as they say. So she's lying on the deathbed, and the apostles are around. But we see Christ coming and taking the soul of the Virgin Mary in the icon, and the Virgin Mary looked like a small child, a small child. And it's such a way to die. To die is to be born, as if, I've been 9 years. Sorry, we have been 9 months in the womb of our mother to be born as a human being in this world. But we can also say that all our life in this world is a kind of gestation. We are in the womb of this world to become to eternal life, and it is all this process, which has been for Abhishikananda his journey. So of course, when he was in Kergonon, he had a very classical life and spirituality exercise. Mostly the psalm, sung in Latin. He was, till the end of his life, he was totally full of those Gregorian chants. That was his background, and what was background of his spiritual life, you know, and when you look at the diary, he's always quoting the Psalms in Latin. But then after he discovered, yes, Ramana Maharishi, and he made those experiments in the caves of Arunachala, those long retreats in silence, you know, in such a way, we don't know, for example, if he was practicing Hatha Yoga or not. I mean, he has tried, but I don't think, you know, because the question is what spiritually Abhishektananda was practicing at the end of his life, you know. Was he doing 1 hour of Hatha Yoga every morning in his kutia, in his hermitage of Gyonsu in Uttarkashi? So I think, you know, his spiritual journey was not so much in terms of technique, of meditation, of prayer, but in a way that very courageously he has allowed himself to be transformed by the different meetings he had, and very shaking meeting, like, you know, Ramana. Imagine, I mean, a monk coming from a very narrow-minded abbey in France and meeting this sage and discovering, and you know, it was intellectually for him very difficult to say, no, this sage is you know, is a real sage, is led by the Spirit. I mean, because, you know, his head was full of Christian theology at that time. You know, the Spirit more or less was only in the church. But from his heart, when he saw Ramana, he had the darshan. So, you know, his journey was, he was formed by all those meetings, all those darshan he had of the sages, all those journey, all those time of silence, you know. And I would say, you know, very patiently, he has let himself to be molded, or, you know, like a sculpture, you know. When you take, if you have a sculpture, you take a piece of rock and slowly you remove the things and you let the beautiful sculpture appear. And I think, you know, the awakening, as Bettinaji was saying, it's a process, you know. It's a process, and I was saying both a process of going very deep, but becoming also very simple, very friendly. I think we could write something on the friendship of Abhishektananda. Have you perhaps ever noticed that the great saints are always wonderful friends? You know, if you take, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhi was surrounded by so many good friends. You know, Gandhi had a genius for friendship, you know. So this, in Sanskrit, we call them the Kalyana Mitra, you know. We become friends for the spiritual benefits of the other, you know. And so, yes, those friendship, the last book published on Abhishektananda by Milena Karana is called The Gift of Friendships. They are the letters of Panikar and Abhishektananda, their letters. But it's beautiful titles, The Gift of Friendship. So I think, you know, it is in this totality that we have to see the awakening of Abhishektananda, and definitely also a gift, because all those meetings, all those darshan, all those friendships, the gift of the spiritual son, the gifts of brothers and sisters, they were all a part of this immense gift that, as I've left, I think as I've left those gifts, I've led Abhishektananda to this great awakening, you know, and this death will make him so fruitful, so alive for us today. Thank you.
Yann, thank you for that. Yeah. I'm just, let's see, maybe questions here? Listen, Yann, I'm wondering, you know, okay, so you presented Therese in your portraits book. She's one of the eight, but you're referring to letters here now. I just wonder, if you don't mind, what kind of, like, how much correspondence do you have between them? In other words, do you have a trove of letters between Therese and Abhishektananda, or at least Abhishektananda's letters to her that presumably were able to access from her community there or, well, I'm not really sure how you access them, but do you have other letters that are yet to be published in French or English of that correspondence?
Okay. Thank you, Michael. So, I mean, those letters, it's a whole history. In 2005, I was not yet a priest. I was studying, preparing to become a priest. I went to the Carmel of Lisieux in Normandy. and we had a meeting with the sisters inside the enclosure. At the end, the prioress, the superior, Mother Dominique, told me, "No, Yann, we had a sister went through India." Oh, I said, "Yeah, I know the story, Sister Therese." Yeah, but she told, we don't know anything about her. Nothing is remaining. Yeah, I said, she has disappeared mysteriously in September 76, like Mark would disappear mysteriously in April 77. But we never know, what has happened to them, And she said, "Can you look?" I said, "Yes, but, I don't know if I would find something, And during 10 years along my journey, I was asking here and there, but nothing was coming. And I don't know one in the span of 3 years, more or less, around 2015, in Delhi, in the Carmel of Pondicherry, Delhi Abhishektananda Society, in the Carmel of Pondicherry, in the Carmel of Lisieux also, they had forgotten that they had some documents, very interesting documents. In other places, I found around between 700 and 800 pages of letters. So, we were thinking that nothing was remaining of the life of Therese, and we didn't know what was her life. And suddenly, all her life from 1959 till August, I think, 1976, so 59 to 76, all her life, weeks after week, reappear. And so we had the letters of Therese that she was writing to her own sister in Lisieux or to some other Carmelites nuns to whom she was very close. And very interesting because, those nuns, they had so much time to write. I don't know what we are doing, never writing anything. But, those people, so we have all the details, very, beautiful details of the life. But something very interesting appears that I found the letters of Abhishektananda to Therese, who were in Delhi in the Abhishektananda Society. But I found the letters of Therese to Abhishektananda. Now, Abhishektananda was traveling. We are in India, and at that time they were writing in aerograms. I think those Indians who are old among us have seen aerograms. 25 years ago, I was writing on aerograms because it's very light and you don't have to pay too much stamps. So, those aerograms, in the monsoon, it's so humid. It was getting spoiled, and Abhishektananda was traveling. So this is why we have the letters of Abhishektananda to many people, but we don't have the letters that Abhishektananda received from the people who were writing to him. But in the case of Therese, we have almost all the letters that Therese wrote to him, and we have almost all the letters that Abhishektananda wrote to Therese. And that is very unique. I have just seen, in the case of Panikkar, we have few letters, but it's not like Therese and Abhishektananda. So in the case of Therese, we see this spiritual dialogue, how he was. This is what is fascinating. We see how concretely Abhishektananda was accompanying, following, giving advice to Therese, encouraging her. And that makes this correspondence fascinating. We have published it in French. There are 2 volumes. Maybe one day somebody will translate them in English. It would be very, very beautiful because here again, as I told you at the beginning, I discovered this human face of Abhishektananda through his letters to to Therese and to Mark. So we have this beautiful correspondence published in French. What is not published, I don't know if it will be published one day, are the letters of Therese to her sisters. I do hope, it's not my grace to write a biography, but I have asked a friend and who was already written 2 beautiful biographies, and I said, I have those 800 pages. It would be very nice if you could write with those letters the biography of Therese. Because, imagine a cloister nun of Lisieux becoming an hermit in Brahmapuri, 5 kilometers up from Rishikesh. So that has been a great discovery of those last years. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Yann. Yeah. Do we have any other question? Yann, we may be coming towards the end of our time. Let me check with Dorothy where we are in time. Huh? Okay. Yeah, you know what? One more question. So we have time for one more question. Yann, we're a little bit over our schedule, but we're gonna adjust. So let me see if we have one more question. Does anybody have a question? This will be probably the last one this segment. Okay, I'm handing the microphone to Claude.
Bonsoir. Une question, puisqu'elle concerne que les Français. Est-ce que le deuxième volume des correspondances de Thérèse est paru?
Oui, le 14 septembre. Les 2 volumes sont parus maintenant chez Yann. Oui. Yeah, yes. The 2 volumes have been published in French of the letters of Abishkanda and Thérèse.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yann, could you repeat the answer?
Yes, I was saying, yes, the 2 volumes of the correspondence of the letters of Thérèse and Abishkanda have been published in French. The second volume has been published on 14 September. So everything is available now.
Wow.
But you know, I mean, for those who don't read French, in the Indian portrait, so you can ask Father Dorothy, I know he has some copies. I have quoted lots the letters of Abishkanda to Thérèse, you know, so I think in the Indian portraits you will find the very best, you know, of those letters. Yeah.
Thank you, Yann. Yeah. Thank you, Yann. Thank you.
Good. So in deep communion with all of you, and we'll meet also one day. Thank you.